it was the docks and the fishing industry that attracted the people. It's like the saying from that Kevin Costner film, if you build it, they will come. And that was exactly what happened.
I think I could start right back to the 1840s and 50s. My great-great-grandfather, Lee Smith, had his fishing smack called the Alice, and they actually came from North Somercotes, which is one of the villages on the outskirts of the town.
When the Manchester, Sheffield and Lincolnshire Railway started to develop the docks, Grimsby was basically on its uppers. It was finished. They couldn't keep the haven clear, so that they couldn't get the ships in. There was no industry of any sort. So if the docks hadn't have been built and the railways hadn't invested, Grimsby would have disappeared.
Most parents and children and families worked in the big companies like Ross Group. To give you an example, when I was young, my first job was at Ross Foods. And my brothers worked there, they were factory managers, my sister worked there, my nieces worked there, my nephews, my uncle. So everybody tended to work in the food industry.
It attracted people not only from all over the country, but from Scandinavia as well. So there's a lot of Danish people came to settle here, as well as Cornwall and Devon, Kent, East Anglia, the North East Scotland.
It shows again my great-grandfather living at 63 Kent Street, and it told you what his job was, and it mentions they're the deeds, they're the sort of on these sheets it told you exactly what was going to be on the boat, and it's like an agreement, and it was an agreement to show that Lee Smith was selected to actually be the captain of the boat. It was an awful life for them. I mean, the hours they spent on deck, if they were catching the trawl, they got the fish in, they spend hours on the deck then sorting the fish out, and they could do 12, 14, 16 hours on deck. And sometimes they came home from sea in debt, so they'd come, they'd land. I know they called them 3-day millionaires, but sometimes they came home and they didn't have very much money.
Several trawlers were lost a year with the full crews. So they used to party, that's why they were 3-day millionaires. They used to spend the money while they were at home, because there was just that chance that would be the last time.
I'm a rare and tearing fisherman that sails from Grimsby town, and in the line and kitchen I've had many an up and down. But when I spent my stock of ale and had a little spree, then away I'll crack on board a smack to plough the stormy sea.
Over the last 30, 40 years, we've lost over 80 million, that's 80 million from Grimsby and North East Lincolnshire's budgets. And anybody will tell you, you pull that money from your budgets, everything goes.
I think the demise of the fishing industry has quite a lot put on it, but I don't think that can be the sole factor. I mean, the world has moved on in lots and lots of ways, and I think probably there's deindustrialisation is a part of it, but then the concentration of wealth around cities, particularly in the south, also had quite a lot to play.
Greed, basically. Greed in as much as there was no conservation of the fish stocks, and fish stocks declined to a point where countries started extending the territorial waters, and it finished up with 200-mile limits and things like that. They were willing to give quotas, and certainly one government made the mistake of demanding a certain quota. and the Prime Minister of the time was told by somebody locally, we cannot catch that amount of fish.
The other issue with Grimsby was there was very little investment in trawlers. Some of these trawlers were years old, and I believe that they never invested in new trawlers like other places, like Hull invested in trawlers, and we didn't.
It just declined to a point where really the town it almost got to the point where it was as bad as it was pre the docks coming. This idea that we would get control of our own waters and get our fishing back is a total myth. It was never going to happen. As a port, not as a country, but as a port, we have lost the skill base. So even if tomorrow they said, oh, we're opening up the North Sea, Grimsby hasn't got the fishermen to do it.
I think at the moment we've got Leah Nietzsche in as Conservative, and she's doing a lot more than what the Labour did when there was decades in power for Grimsby area.
In 2019 there was two major factors that caused Grimsby to vote Conservative. One of them was Brexit and the other one was the former leader of the Labour Party. People voted overwhelmingly to leave the European Union, and it mattered a huge amount to them. The fact that Labour decided that it was not going to reflect that in any of its policies really set people against the party.
I want to see what we've been told by this Prime Minister is that they're going to have the levelling up. If they had the levelling up, for me in Grimsby, there's so many things we're so far behind.
There is very little power in local government, full stop. There's very little funding in local government, full stop. If we look at the local authority here, what they're actually responsible for now is next to nothing. They've got some responsibilities around children and old people. The rest of it is all contracted out. They are focusing on getting little pots of funding for small projects. That's really no way to support communities around the country.
So I think the town has become tough. We have got a lot of unemployment, we have got a lot of deprivation and poverty, but we've got people still alive who knew how the town was good at one time. But how people can change it, I don't know. I'm just hoping the new industries coming in, the new energy and wind industry, and I know Melanie On's doing some superb work in that area.
I work now in the renewable sector. We've got a burgeoning offshore wind operations and maintenance base here, which is really exciting. It is taking on young people in through apprenticeships, employing local people as well. So that's a good sign that there is something new on the horizon. I think that we need to do more than that. I always think it's a bit of a symbol. If we can get those international companies in brand new technologies basing themselves here, there's no reason why other companies in other fields would not want to come and base themselves here, but we have to work hard to bring them to the area and give people locally the opportunities to work for them.
To me, most of my life has been about Grimsby, the place I was born, the people who lived here, and no, I won't let anybody criticise Grimsby because it is my home and where I was born.
I was born here, I was raised here, and I'm one of these people that I see the whole area as being one, and it is very, very important that it is very important, and people should be proud of the area they come from.
People do feel very attached to to their hometowns, and I think that I've seen lots of people, you know, they've grown up here, perhaps they've moved away, but they come back when they're having a family, they come back and they tend to give a lot more back to the area.
Lived here all my life, born and bred in the West Marsh, worked on the docks, and just generally lived here all my life. Although I've been to different places, I've always enjoyed coming back home. I just think that I think it's underrated, and I think like most areas, I think there's good and bad everywhere. Yeah, I'm quite proud of being a Grimsbarian, if you like, if that's the right word.
Here's to the Grimsby lads out on the trawling, all the night long on the billowing deep, shooting their nets with the heaving and hauling.